Welcome back to another episode of Monday Night Muscle with the voice of professional bodybuilding, Bob Chick. And in the middle right here, Big Hunter Labrada, your former NPC overall national champion, a title that Bob actually never did win since you were trying to go for that USA title.
Because everybody wants to be Mr. USA.
Oh, which you are, aren't you?
But
aren't you?
It isn't much better. Like,
listen, it's a lifetime appointment. See,
wait a minute, you're Mr. USA?
That's right.
What year was that?
Ever.
In the flesh.
2000.
2000, that's right.
First of the 2000s, bro. But you know what? Hunter's got another title, and that is Olympian from this last year.
Olympian, how does that sound?
Still surreal. You know, I think it's finally set in now that we're about to, enter into prep for this year's season. You know, that it actually happened last year because, that's my expectation this year is to end up back there. But, it's still kind of one of those things, like I started bodybuilding, 4 years ago, and then, this year we're on the Olympia stage. So I feel like I got all of the it's nice to be here's and this is really cool's out of me this year. So
well, it's interesting.
Coming for blood this year.
You said your journey to the bodybuilding industry, Bob, took place way back in 1991 where you got started in Orlando Olympia weekend.
Well, kind of. Yeah.
Put it in context.
I was kind of there.
If we're getting really technical,
I was kind of there.
You were kind of, sort of there, but your father was certainly there.
Yes.
And everybody knows that background. But before we delve into the past, let's get to the Olympia because we're going to kind of work our way backwards here. A little unconventional,
reverse chronological.
But we're fresh right off it. So
that's because his memory only works.
I got to work my way back.
Most
to
recent events.
So you're at the Olympia. You qualify for the Olympia, of course, which. Nobody really didn't see that coming. I mean,
but wait, he qualified by winning the Tampa Pro Show.
Yeah, of course. I called him on the stage.
You're right.
Yeah. So I was able to.
This is for the viewers that don't know context. Bob.
Everybody knows this. Everybody follows Hunter stuff.
He wins his first pro show.
Yeah, well, of course, right? I mean,
he's Labrada.
Bob's been part of all my firsts. He was the one that announced me my first amateur win, too.
Wow, the Nationals, 2000.
No, Branch Warren, 2016 Branch Warren.
And then you went to the Nationals in
2018.
2018.
So here's the cool thing.
Years.
So as obviously I've got a lot of business in Texas with Ed, Betty Pariso, all the other promoters, Branch, and everybody. I've been able to see Hunter literally grow up into the sport, knowing his father, of course, for many years. So it's been an interesting view from my perspective to see you kind of come in, dominate, move on to another show. Now you could have turned pro much earlier, probably a good 2 years earlier from most people's perspective that saw where your physique was, but your father was adamant that he did not really want you turning pro that early. Why?
Yeah, this is my opinion as well as his. I feel like one that's echoed by a lot of the purists and the more like hardcore guys. I wanted to compete for a pro card when I felt like I had a physique that was worthy of being called professional. In the day
that's a lost art, Sean.
In the day and age that we live in, and this isn't a knock against it because I understand why it happens. We're trying to expand our sport, but we have 5 or 6 shows just in the States that give out pro cards, a lot of them to first and second place. It has become, a watered down pool, simply earning professional status. While it's an accomplishment that I'm not knocking, it doesn't mean what it used to. Just because you're a pro does not mean you have a pro level physique anymore. That's just brass tacks of it. You can be pro and you cannot have a pro physique. Absolutely. So whenever I started, and going back to it, you asked why did you wait so long to try and go pro? I decided I wanted to bodybuild when I was 18 years old. I quit playing football when I was 18. I didn't compete until I was 25.
Wow.
I always had that long view because I knew I didn't want to be a good amateur. I knew I didn't want to be an okay pro. I knew I wanted to, try and do what Lee couldn't do. To put it bluntly, I wanted to compete for Olympia titles.
Now, Sean, this is truly a lost art because the last guy we really seen that kind of came in as a pro and made an immediate impact was probably Phil Heath. And that's going back some years. Before that, it was back in your days of the Lavronis and the Flex Wheelers and those type of guys.
Right.
So it's kind of nice to see that.
Well, it's interesting that he's held himself back consciously. Wanted to do the football thing, and at 18 you kind of made the decision, but your dad was bodybuilding. Were you looking at his videos? Were you looking at his pictures? You had to see what he accomplished. Did you aspire to want to be that? How did you get bit by the bodybuilding bug?
So, I feel like I always call it like a bodybuilding archetype, if you will. But, you know, like so many people have a similar enough story. We'll call it an archetype. But, you know, like I got into weight training for football. I was head over heels in love with football. It was my first love.
A lot of guys.
You know, I was a smaller kid when I started. And, you know, it was one of those, okay, you need to grow. So from the time I was in 8th grade until the time I was a senior in high school, I put 20 pounds a year on while being, you know, like defensive back, running back lean. So I was putting good amounts of tissue on every year. And, you know, at the time, I enjoyed what my body was doing. It was fun to look like that, but it was more so I want to be better at football at all costs. And you know, my senior year, I ended up having a couple injuries, and I ended up playing 5 games. But those injuries, you know, kind of forced me to start training on a more bodybuilding split, because I didn't want to like only be in the gym 2 days a week, right? I liked being in the gym, so you know, split stuff up a little more. And you know, with the decrease in activity from you know being hurt and not playing football, and you know, like the more specialized training, I watched myself kind of go like, and I was like, well, this is fun. And you know, so by the time
that has nothing to do with this.
No, dude, I'll get to that. You're gonna laugh about this. But so, football was, you know, everything was football. You know, junior summer, you know, went to like 8 or 9 different schools camps. You know, I was getting recruited by some Ivy League schools because I was smart. And you know, it's something very much so that I poured myself into. And you know, my dad saw that, so ended up earning a scholarship to a Division II school up in Boston. You know, they were top 10 in Division II football the year that I went, and then they were like the 4th place in the country to get an undergraduate business degree from. It was Bentley University in Waltham. So. Went up there, and when it wasn't high school football with my best friends, and it was, you know, like a 50-hour a week time commitment at a smaller school where it's not like, you know, it's like, okay, you know, playing football is a huge deal with a ton of perks. It's you do it because you love to play football. It was like, okay, well, I think I like training to play football more than I like playing football. And, you know, so at that point, you know, I think I made it through, you know, like 7 or 8 days of, you know, camp. We didn't even make it to the real season. And, you know, I think I would have started as a freshman. You know, all of my, you know, test out, like both like the running and the lifts were, you know, like towards the top of everyone on the team. You know, as a freshman, but it's I didn't love it. So you know, it was one of those things. Told the coach I wasn't going to play anymore. Called my parents, told them I wasn't going to play anymore. And Lee told me to find a ride home from the airport.
Wow.
So yeah, and you know, it's all love with him and I think everyone knows that. But you know, it just kind of goes to show you, you know, how, you know, just football was for us. You know, like Lee did not want me to bodybuild. He didn't. You know.
So hang on a second. Don't skip by the ball though. What told you in here that this wasn't for you?
So I've been hyper competitive all my life, like brutally hyper competitive all my life, and I've always done very well at anything that I've chosen to do. And you know, football is no different. But you know, at the end of the day, you know, graduating high school football, you know, I'd had 4 concussions. I had broke my arm. I had a avulsion fracture in my hip. You know, dislocated my shoulder. And you know, it's by the time I graduated high school, I knew I wanted to bodybuild. You know, at the time I was like, I want to bodybuild, but you know, like let's play college football first. And you know,
4 more years of college ball is looking like it's going to be a long road.
I was kind of faced with one of those things. You know, not only is it the time commitment, I'm kind of falling out of love with it, but you know, it's like with football, it's not a matter of if you get hurt, it's when and how bad.
Of course.
And up until this point, nothing had happened that was going to hold me back from bodybuilding after. But you know, it's like, you know, it's just your one, you know, broken leg, torn up knee, you know, this or that away from never playing football again, and then never being able to bodybuild at the level that I wanted to. So, kind of went like that with football.
I think that story resonates with a lot of people that are top notch in our sport. I mean, they come from this team thing to this individual thing that you have a little bit more control over. And you may not have control over when or if the injuries happen, but you have control over how hard you train, how much size you're putting on, and you can actually see the fruit of your labor. Whereas for football, like you said, once you start playing scared to get hurt or the possibility of getting hurt, your focus changes. And now here you are, headstrong into bodybuilding. Did you verbalize that to your dad? I want to be like you. I want to follow in your footsteps. Or is this something you're doing separately from your dad? Because those are big shoes to fill.
No, for sure. You know, it's one of those things. I think we went through like a couple different like stages with him. Like when I first told him, I was like, no, I don't want to play football. In his mind, it was, okay, he's just homesick. I really need to push him to go back to do this. Like, he was really hard on my ass about it. You know, he had a couple friends that I was close to, you know, that would like literally like took me out to lunch and like gave me like the fifth degree about, you know, going back and finishing what I started and you know, like making good on my promises.
Plus he thinks he's got you out of the house.
Right? So, and you know, after that happened, you know, once it got to the point where I was like, no, I'm not doing it. I think he finally realized like, okay, well, this is going to impact our relationship if I keep on pushing it. So I kind of backed off that, but it wasn't like, all right, let's bodybuild.
Yeah.
You know, it was, okay, well, you need to go to school, you need to keep your grades up, and, you know, like, we'll continue to support you kind of deal.
Okay.
And, you know, as the time went on, you know, I went into my freshman year, you know, 205 pounds and, like, really lean, like football shape. And, you know, by the time I came home from that first year of school, I was 235 pounds.
Wow.
And, you know, I was, you know, eating the all-you-can-eat cafeteria plan 235, but, you know, still not higher than 12%. So, you know, I think after seeing that kind of progress that I made in 1 year, and, you know, I made good grades. So, you know, like, my grades were good. I put 35 pounds on.
Yeah, that takes
a
lot of work.
I didn't get in any trouble.
Right.
And, you know, and that's another thing, you know, it's not like 35 pounds of, like, noobish gym gains. It was, you know, I was 205 pounds. And
we've seen Bob put on 35 pounds overnight.
Yeah. Right after shows.
I was a big kid, and then, you know, like, once he saw that, he was like, okay, he was serious enough to eat 6 times a day and do this, you know, through his schooling and everything. You know, he's serious enough about it to where I believe he wants to do it.
So at some point you tell your dad, all right, I want to get on stage now.
Yeah. So, you know, the goal was always to get on stage. You know, after we got through that initial little rough spat and he really saw, you know, the progress and the dedication I had to it, you know, he bought in. He was like, all right, if we're going to do this, you know, let's do it right. You know, we're not going to do shows before. And, you know, I say this like we're not going to do, like he was the one telling me I can and cannot do things. He gave me his opinion.
Okay.
It's always been one of those, you know, like he's going to give me his 2 cents on things and that'll be that.
Then you do your own thing.
Now, your dad's 2 cents certainly has to be worth more because of obviously where he came from. He's a legend in the sport. He's, you know, almost won the Olympia. I mean, you know, so when he says he puts his 2 cents, how many times did you actually
So my dad's
not take his
2
advices?
cents has become worth more and more to me over the years.
Right.
You know that saying, you're never a prophet in your own land.
Right.
So I've definitely over, you know, the last couple of years done a pretty good job in my mind of separating dad from
Coach.
You know, Hall of Fame bodybuilder,
Right.
you know? And you know, there's definitely some similarities in, you know, both our physiques and our body chemistry, so it's nice to have. But, you know, in the same breath, and this is where some of our has come in the past couple of years, you know, it's a different game.
It's your own journey as
It's
well.
a different game. It's a different journey. You know, the heaviest he ever was when he competed was 192 pounds. I was 250 pounds on stage at the Olympia.
Yeah, so he can't tell you much when it comes to the weight.
Sean, you know, similar, obviously you do have a lot of similarities, but you're a lot bigger than your dad ever was.
Yeah, height-wise,
and Sean,
obviously.
I mean, as we've talked about many times in the past, you can't get a middleweight ready for a show the same as you do a super heavyweight.
No, you're right.
The numbers don't jive. Like, there is differences.
But I imagine, and I don't have a son, I got daughters, but most bodybuilders don't want their sons to follow in their footsteps, it seems. Because we know how hard the journey is, we know how political it can be, and there's a lot of mind things going on. I'm sure your dad wanted you to probably just get an education more than anything else. But remember, his mom's 5'9", 5'10".
5'10".
Yeah, dad's on the smaller side. So these genetics matched up kind of perfectly.
Yeah, I mean.
And she actually used to train back in the day as well. But nonetheless, you're still struggling with your own identity, right? So your dad wasn't training with you in the gym building this physique on the way up, was it?
No, yeah, and I think that's kind of an assumption that a lot of people made, and you know, it's one that I've always been, you know, okay with because we have a great relationship,
Right.
but he's been very minimally involved in the nuts and bolts of the day-to-day, you
That
know, as
takes
far as
discipline, too.
the nutrition and the training and everything like that goes. You know, he's been more of, you know, obviously he helps me with my posing, so I will 100% call him my posing coach, if you will. But, you know, outside of that,
Smart
he's
play.
definitely my, yeah, right? Not too bad of a guy.
His dad was an engineer before he became a bodybuilder.
Oh, really? I didn't even know that.
He's sharp as Lee. When I talked to Lee about you getting ready for the Olympia this year, and mind you, he's probably more excited than he ever let on. But he says to me, "Sean, can you get me backstage?" I said, I'm sure Jake will let you backstage. There'll be no problem getting you backstage. What do you want to do? I just want to watch. I don't want to interfere. I want to watch. I want to kind of see what's going on. Because look, this is my first time like being backstage, and I got my son in the show. I said, no problem. So I kind of felt responsible for sneaking your dad in the backstage to kind of let you do what you did, because now the space that you reside in, I mean, this is your space. He doesn't train you, so to speak. He's not your workout partner, and you only consult with the posing aspect. So this is what we're seeing is your byproduct. Like your dad had his career, now you have yours. How satisfactory are you with what you've been able to achieve?
You know, I think proud but never satisfied's a good little descriptor for it. You know, I'll say this, I've never felt like I'm like in his shadow, if you will, or like, oh my God, if I don't, you know, like do everything that he did and then some, you know, it was a failure. And, before nationals had happened, I'm not gonna say it weared on me, but it was like in my head, I was like, oh my God, like this is getting
a lot
old.
of pressure.
So many people are, expecting X. I make a joke. The Olympia was the first show that I've ever done that I was not expected to win.
Right,
This is
true.
true.
We got a lot
That was the first show I've ever done in my life that people were not expecting me to win.
And you weren't
that was a lot of
expecting it.
pressure going into Tampa.
Listen, I can back that up because I'd done every one of your shows. And every show you were expected to win. I mean, it was kind of a foregone conclusion. And when you walked out, it was like, oh, wait do you see Hunter? And you were, ahead above most of the other guys. I mean, you had some good competition in there, but it was clear you were at a different level.
But he also still could have been a little bit tighter.
Well, there was
drier.
always that.
Yeah.
But there was always a bigger goal. Like I would talk to your dad at the shows. And I would ask him, like, so you think, we're going to get, you're going to see Hunter at the Nationals this year, the USA? Nah, not yet. Nah, we're just kind of, he was always very methodical. And obviously the approach that you guys were taking that. And he told me exactly what you just said earlier. We want to get him to a point that when he does turn pro, that he can immediately step on a pro stage and be in contention. And I thought that was smart, and it clearly it paid off. But you get to the Olympia.
Wait, before we get to Olympia,
damn it,
we got
I
to
keep
take
wanting
the
to get to
commercial
Olympia.
break, Bob. We got to pay the bills here.
Oh, man,
Let's take
so
our
many.
first commercial break here at Monday Night Muscle and find out what happened when Hunter got to the Mr. Olympia.
You diet down, train hard, and supplement smart for months. When the time comes to step on stage, don't leave your tan to chance. Go with the pros. Pro Tan. #1 worldwide since 1987 and the official sponsor of the Olympia for the last 15 years. Don't step on stage without it. Pro Tan.
All right, we're back with our national champion and our rookie Olympian, Hunter Labrada, who's going to take us through his arrival at the 2020 Mr. Olympia.
Now can we get to the Olympia?
Yeah, we're there in the rookie season for this guy.
All right.
On the pro stage. What happened?
Yeah, we got to get the in-depth because you got a lot of young followers. You're a young guy in the sport. You got a shitload of followers, which is great. You got a whole bunch of them, but they never get to see the behind the scenes, like the really like how did it go? Like what did it feel like? So, give the introspective of what was it like? You get backstage at the Olympia. Take it from there.
Man, so yeah, it's one of those things, and it's funny you say like you never see really like a behind the scenes view. I think we did a pretty good job of showing a good behind the scenes view, especially the week of on the YouTube stuff we did.
Nice,
So I'd encourage y'all to go watch that if you want to see what was kind of going on. Like,
Where's that on your YouTube channel?
On Labrada's YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah, so definitely, the whole Olympia series is real up close and personal, but that last episode, it's like me like rolling out of bed, me and my boxers walking around the house, me praying with my family before we go to prejudging. Like it's very behind
What
the
does
scenes.
the prayer look like? Because I remember my first Olympia. I was 22 years old, and I was there by myself. You had your whole family there.
Yeah,
what does that look
my
like?
mom, dad, both my brothers, my girlfriend, my daughter, Brian, my training partner, the 3 video and picture guys that are more best friends than video and picture guys.
So as a group, what are you collectively hoping for and desiring when you're like, okay, it's game time, like before you go out to play? What does it look like for you? What do you guys pray about?
Man, we were just we were just there, and just gave thanks for the year that we had. Everyone had a pretty rough year last year. Our industry included.
2020.
So, just gave thanks for the blessing that it was to be there, and then we were pretty confident that I did all my work. So it wasn't one of those good luck kind of deals. It was just let things happen how they're supposed to. Watch over us and just.
Was there any expectation?
Let us have a good day.
Did you say like, hey, I want to be top 5, I want to be top 10, I want to stand next to...
Man, yeah, no, I said this in a post, couple weeks post, because it was the 2 questions that I got asked like ad nauseum going into the Olympia was, who do you want to stand next to, and where do you think you'll place?
Yeah.
The first one I always answered the same, and it was like a dream come true because I want to stand next to Dexter.
Okay.
And so the entire time, it's J and L,
And
so
you
we're
were.
stacked next to each other the whole time, just off the numbers. We end up in the same call out. We end up getting compared next to each other.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting there getting to talk to Mr. Olympia.
And by the way, Mr. Olympia won the Tampa Pro the year before you did.
Yeah,
That's right.
casually watching. So, that was who I always said, who do you want to stand next to? And then
Wow.
whenever they said, like, where do you want to place? I always said the same thing. It's not. on me for, because at that point, I'm an unproven rookie.
Okay.
The only person on that Olympia stage that I've competed against and beat was Ian, and Ian's a great bodybuilder that was off at Tampa. So proof in the pudding. He beat me at the Olympia. So
wow. What did you wind up placing?
I placed 8th. He placed 7th.
Okay.
So it's one of those things that I never wanted to answer it because I didn't want to talk about beating people I've never competed against before.
Well, you beat Dexter.
That's
a pretty big deal.
After the fact, headed into the Olympia, people asked me where I wanted to place. It was always one of those, I want to do as best I can and see where the chips fall.
Okay.
That being said, after the smoke settled, the entire prep, and I said this afterwards, I trained for 6th.
Okay.
In my mind, I wanted top 6.
That's reasonable. That was a reasonable
in the worst way.
Very.
And I was able to look at that lineup.
I thought you were going to be in 6th.
I was going to be real truthful with myself, and it's like the top 5 that was the top 5. I was like, okay, that's going to be tough. And then in my mind, outside of that top 5, I was like, all right, you're going to mix it up with Akeem, you're going to mix it up with Ian, and we're going to see who ends up in that 6th spot.
Yeah.
Hats off to Akeem, dude. It was a
beast.
I actually had you.
He's always been so damn big, but it's just like he was so much sharper.
And he was consistent.
Ever seen him at the Olympia? So hats off to him. He looked awesome. He deserved 6th place.
Yeah, he won the Chicago Pro the same year. So I think by competing in that show, it kept him closer. Like Victor Richards got that thick skin. That show kept his body weight down long enough for him to dial it in and break into that top 6.
It seemed to help. Yeah. The skin looked a little thinner, especially from the back. That seems to be a problem for him. But he was right there. I mean,
it's funny how that works. Some people do well. They get better and better and better and better, and then some people just get worse and worse.
Well, you have the advantage of youth. Now, when we start talking about the next generation, you are in that next generation. I call him the future. That was my little nickname.
I like it.
I don't know what you call it. I call him the future. But going back to, we started at 1991. I know you were trying to go in reverse from 2020 to
the good stuff, man.
From 2020 to 1990.
You're stuck in the 90s. Everything you talk about's in the 90s.
Well, I want to get back to where this guy came from. He came from Orlando, Florida. 1991, he was conceived. And then, of course, your dad went on to win or compete again in 1992, was 4th place in Helsinki, Finland. 93 was 3rd place, I believe it was. No, he was 4th place in 93 at the Mr. Olympia. In 94, I don't believe your dad was in the Olympia, but he was gone by 95.
Yeah, he retired in 95.
Your dad was gone and he was
Labrada,
done and launched the Labrada Nutrition. I think he actually got started with Metrex initially with Scott Conley and with Jeff Everson and a few, Sean Phillips, Bill Phillips. But then he started a supplement company, which I know you were instrumental. You worked there, right? You worked for the supplement company?
I worked there out of school full time, but now I'm strictly more of an athlete role.
And I understand that you're a professional Olympian, but working with your dad, is that something where you guys had to deal with each other on a day-to-day basis? Because now you're an employee of Labrada Nutrition, which, by the way, is a pretty big enterprise. Your dad's going to show me the new gym he's got over there. Yeah. But how was that working in that capacity, which has nothing to do with bodybuilding?
It was interesting.
Yeah.
And, I feel like anyone watching this that works with family in any capacity will know it's really hard at times, especially, in more, dynamic settings where you're talking and debating things to keep it, keep the roles fixed.
Yeah.
Because it's not okay for me to talk to
Lee
Labrada, CEO of Labrada, as dad in the meeting, but, vice versa. It's not okay for him to talk to what's supposed to be an employee like his son.
Right.
So it was kind of an interesting back and forth. And we had some growing pains with it, and ultimately I feel like me being in the role that I am now is a lot more conducive to just the water being still. Yeah. But no, we made it work, and I had a great time working there. But I definitely think how we have it now is best.
And it's also interesting, Bob. This guy's a dad. I mean, we're talking about Grandpa Lee Labrada.
I was just going to say, did it change your perspective any when you became a father? Now your daughter's young. She's 5 years old now. I was going to say 3. She's 5 already.
It goes fast.
I know, right? Did that change your perspective at all when you became a father, from looking things from because you can't help but look at things differently when you become a parent?
Yeah, no, for sure. It made trivial things seem a lot less important. At the end of the day, it made me a lot more cognizant of the fact that I need to take care of me and mine first, and not really care about anything else other than that.
Well, that becomes your role, right? I mean, you got to look out for your own. And
people that kind of follow me, they know, I don't know, I got a pretty small circle, and it's been that way for a real long time, and it's been the same people, and yeah.
Well, you did what a lot of athletes were not able to do. You stood on that Olympia stage, and now, instead of going from just wanting to be here and happy to be here, you got to have a different perspective on what 2021 is going to look like, because not too distant future, the 2021 Olympia is coming in October at the same place. It should be in Orlando. You have to qualify.
Yes, sir.
And so you've already done that last year. So what is that going to look like? There's a few shows on the calendar. It's going to be some strategy behind it. You don't look like you're that far away from being within earshot. So what's on the calendar? What's the short-term plan?
Short-term plan is to hit a show sometime end of July, beginning of August.
Doesn't take a rocket scientist to know what shows
July
are coming up.
15th to August 15th, somewhere in there. So
You could be back in Tampa for all we know.
we could be back in Tampa. We could be in Chicago. Word on the street is there might be an open pro show in Texas.
Yeah.
So we'll see where I end up. But that time frame is where I'm looking
There is
at.
some strategy involved this year, Sean, because we're on a short year. Everybody knows we were in December last year. We're back more towards the usual time frame. This time in October.
What's y'all's opinion on that? Did y'all like it in December? Do you like it more?
We're not on a diet. We're not competing.
for us, it's
personally,
Just from like a season standpoint, because I kind of liked how it was
gotta be
kind of like a
honest.
grand culmination.
For
you know,
me,
it's the Olympia, and then the slate's wiped clean, then everyone's
We'll
gonna.
let
I
the
like
old man
it. I
talk
like it
first.
later, and I like it later for a few reasons. And not to say this is in stone. I mean, listen, this has been a funky year.
He's not talking as a competitor. Go ahead.
No, I'm not talking as a competitor, but I am talking from the business perspective of it.
Yes.
I like it later because I like to see things encapsulated into 1 year.
Okay.
Like every other sport, pretty much.
It's-
You start at the beginning of the year. Let's just say it's March. Traditionally it's been the Arnold, the Ironman years ago, those type of shows, and you qualify in the same calendar year as the Olympia, which
Right.
to me is the end of the season, so to say.
Super Bowl.
So maybe it's November-ish. Maybe December's a little late, obviously for a lot of reasons. But let's just say it settles into November down the road, and then any show that's prior to it qualifies you for that year's Olympia. I don't like the idea of you qualifying for next year's Olympia. Like, it seems weird to me. Like, there's no reason for it.
Well, let me give you.
Just don't have shows that close.
I know, but let me give you
to the
some
date.
perspective, because again, we're dealing with logistics. Bob, I'm not sure if you're aware, but the Olympia is a global affair when it comes
What?
down to qualifying. So
Since
trying
when?
to bring an athlete in 2 weeks before the Olympia, sometimes there's some logistical issues.
Like I said,
not to mention visa issues.
Don't have shows that close.
I understand.
Cut it off a month out. Let's just say, hypothetically, let's just say that it was November 15th.
Yes.
Okay? So cut it off October 15th or thereof. Close enough that I don't care where they're coming from. You can get them here, get a ticket, get them processed into the program. I don't know if we're doing programs anymore. I know we used to in the old days. But anything can be done in that time frame, especially these days.
Just remember, we're dealing with a shifting landscape coming off of COVID, which we're still not out of the clear. We're a lot better off this year where we're at now than where we were. But as an athlete, dieting, getting that Olympia out of the way in September for me all those years, over a decade, it was nice to have the balance of the year to kind of coast into the holidays and start the new year in January and go fresh.
Well, see what the youth thinks.
I was going to say, but for a guy like you, I don't imagine. Does it matter when it is? It's the Olympia. They can have that damn thing in July for all I care. Does it matter when it's on the calendar? It's a countdown, isn't it?
Yeah. So, from my standpoint, I'm in Bob's camp, just from the standpoint that I
should be the year-end event.
I like the idea of the Super Bowl of our sport happens at the end of the year, and then the slate is wiped clean, and then everyone's back to where they started at as of January 1st.
Well, you know what? If this kid goes on to win the Olympia, he may be able to say that and make it actually happen.
Well, here's this year's, again, it's a little bit funky because of the last year late date versus the early year date this year now. So it does come into play, though. It's a shortened year. There's going to be less shows to qualify in. And there's going to be a whole bunch of people that need to qualify. And what you don't want to see is athletes that just can't get there because they literally ran out of time or ran out of shows.
Well, everybody knows it's in October.
I know.
It's not a surprise.
But, like I say, there's only X amount of shows. You know what I mean? So that means X amount of people will qualify.
That's good. We got tons of people that are in this. I think it's saturated with too many athletes anyway. So I think it's good.
Well,
either you compete or you don't compete.
Listen, you and I have talked. We've debated that for years. I've always been right, of course, as we know. Too many people cannot qualify to me. I say you qualify everybody and their mother for the Olympia, and then you have cut rounds like we do every other sport.
You're right, but I don't think we should see them in the finals. If we're going to have cut rounds,
no, listen,
like any other thing,
I guess I did a good job with
listen, this
like
ain't
bikini, right?
This ain't fourth grade t-ball. Okay, not everybody gets a shot at the thing. You got to make it to the finals. The only people that should be on that Joe Weider final stage is, let's just say, the top 12 or the top 15 or whatever number we want to come up with that That's it. Like
Okay,
that's
I agree.
You know, when you watch the Olympics, there's 8 lanes. That's it.
That's it.
But 100 people qualify before you get to Usain Bolt and trying to beat the world record, right?
Well, make the Saturday night show a lot shorter if you just see those finalists. That's what I like to see.
I'm all for that.
But what about for you? So now we're going into our second year. I mean, this is not about I'm happy to be here, like you said.
Yeah. No.
We got to have some goals. We have to have some definitive goals going into our second Olympia. I can only speak from experience, Bob. I'm not sure you have a lot of it, but I spent over a decade on the stage. My second year, I was going for the title. My first year, I just happened to be there, kind of like. And I look back, and I beat Robbie Robinson, I beat Albert Beckles, I beat Eduardo Kawak, and standing next to Bob Parrott. It was fun to be there. But the second year, I wanted that title. So now, how has that mental mindset changed for you going into 2021? Where are you at?
I had this talk with my dad a couple days ago. Actually, it's kind of funny, and. I didn't frame it in a negative way, and I don't think of it in a negative way, but, there's a very much so a sense of urgency, like a borderline sense of anxiety about it all to me. It's, like every single day, like in the gym and then like eating and stuff, it's like if I'm feeling sorry for myself about, like these last 2 bites of rice, it's like, well, I bet James or Ian ate their fucking rice today. And then, and be in the gym and, feeling sorry for myself.
So it's already
it's like, I bet Akeem got this done today, So it's definitely, I've seen it shift a little for me, to where it's, I'm in such a small pool right now that, I know who it is that I need to beat. I know what I need to do it. And, every day is an opportunity to do that, and it keeps me up at night if I don't do what I think I needed to do that day. Win the day is my big thing, and it really does get to me if I don't feel like I checked.
It feels like the hands of the sand is going through, like you're watching it every day.
Exactly.
On that countdown.
That's not sand, buddy. That's grains of rice. Hang on, more with Hunter Labrada right after this break. All right, we're back with Hunter Labrada, like grains of rice through the hourglass.
Rice cakes,
These are the days of our lives, Sean.
Dude, if it was the amount of rice that I was eating, that hourglass wouldn't scare me at all. I feel like I'd have years.
Let's get into the modern diet because we're old school. Okay, we were eating the sawdust and
And now we're eating everything.
Yeah, chicken, so everybody wants to know, has the diet changed over the years? The 90s get a lot of play all the time because everybody thinks the physiques were better back then and all that kind of stuff. Has the diet changed at all, or is it just merely a sign of the times?
Diet changed at all for me, or for
just
what,
in general?
like,
You've obviously talked to your dad and plenty of others. I mean, lots of pro bodybuilders, obviously. Yeah. And because your father was competing back then, a lot of people that competed back in the day.
Yeah.
So compare a diet then to what you're doing now.
Okay. So I feel like, this is a caveat. I'm going to talk about people who knew what they were doing back then versus people who knew what they're doing today. Because obviously there's people who don't know what the hell they're doing.
Plenty of them.
In any time period. But, the people who know what they're doing today, I feel like the big differences between, like 10, 15, like 20 years ago, like we're talking about, I feel like people have a much better understanding of how foods affect their particular system. Whether it be through like allergy testing, trial and error, this, that, and another. Like, because I feel like, back in the day was, you ate chicken and you did this and because that's what you have to do.
Right.
These days I feel like there's a lot more attention paid to the digestibility of things. And at the end of the day, it's important because it's not what you eat; it's what you're able to absorb and assimilate. And like case in point, for me over the years, I've made some dietary shifts, and some have worked well and some haven't worked well. But over time, it's refining things and pulling things out of my diet that I don't feel work well for me. In addition to that, I feel like obviously the supplements that we have available to us now are a lot better than what we had, back in the 90s. Talking about, someone like me specifically who, I literally can't eat enough if I wanted to.
Right.
I use a lot of like highly branched cyclic dextrin and stuff, like the carb powders.
And let's be specific now, because obviously as everybody's listening, they're going, oh yeah, supplements. Look, there's a difference between supplements and drugs.
Correct.
Okay?
Well, the drugs are the same today as they were back then.
Drugs are the same as they always were. Okay,
they're the same.
They're not inventing new ones. They didn't make these at Weeder Farms. Okay, back in the day. Okay, everybody thinks, well, what were you guys eating back then? Like we had different food. You know what I mean? It's not the drugs, okay? Let's just get that out of the way right now because everybody's got access to all the same information these days. When you talk about supplements, there is a difference.
Yeah, for sure.
A big difference.
For sure. And, me being in the industry that I am, obviously, we run a supplement company.
Right.
Have been privy to the good, the bad, and the ugly of our industry for, the past 15, 20 years now.
Sure.
And, while there's been a lot of ugly, obviously, there's been a lot of good in terms of, the progressions that we've been able to make, like the digestibility and the flavors of the proteins, how much we can assimilate the carb powders and the carb products, the amino acid products that we have. And, like you said, there'll be a bunch of people who'll be like, oh, no, all that's, BS, whatever. I notice a huge difference. And, that's the only variable that, to take in and out, like the supplementation, being able to get the extra calories in, being able to, promote more muscle protein synthesis, doing things that, just checking the little boxes. I always tell people, at the level that I'm at, you do 6 or 7 things that make a 0.1 or a 0.2% difference, you just made over a 1% difference. And at this level, a 1% difference is huge.
Hey, Sean, these athletes these days have access to DNA testing.
Yeah.
That you can actually get that will tell you
what you should eat or what you're allergic
what
to.
you're allergic, right? What doesn't jive with it. How weird would it be if you were to take one of those now and discover that like something you
was all wrong.
as a base of your diet was completely wrong?
Well, listen. I mean, I never measured my food. I never weighed my had counted calories or paid attention to how many grams of protein. I was just I wung it in terms of the nutrition. I knew what foods to eat. And naturally, some people ate fish, some people ate chicken, or some people eat steak. Different people ate different things. But for me, I'm one of those guys, I could eat everything, and I never had a bad reaction to anything. And maybe I can attribute my genetics to part of why I got there. But again, what you do in the gym is going to dictate kind of what you look like. Yeah. You can eat all the nutrients and the right kind of food, but you still got to do it in the gym, which is what brings me to this. Your style of training. It can't be the same as your dad's. No. Like your dad's a lightweight. I mean, he won the 85 NPC National Middleweight Championships to earn his pro card. Didn't win the overall.
Right.
You're a bigger version. The weight's got to be a little bit heavier. What's the training style like? Is it Ronnie Coleman like? Is it Branch Warren like? Is it very mechanical? What type of training do you do?
So I have boiled down my training style into a sentence.
There we go.
And that is empty bar form with gun to your head intensity and as much weight as you can move for your given rep range.
Wow, that doesn't sound like stimulate, don't annihilate.
No, they're longer.
You're gonna have to explain this.
Longer
I mean,
sentences
stimulate, don't annihilate. Not that accurate. I'm trying to annihilate in as short a time as possible.
Yeah, or just freaking lift. Like some of those old charms that we had. Yeah.
Essentially, if I had to say like what styles it is, I'd say it's kind of like a little bit of a hybrid between, like a Dorian Yates style high intensity, because I will never, ever, ever, ever do more than 5 working sets during a workout, like 5 sets to failure.
What about the reps? What are they?
Reps. And I'm a big progressive overload guy, so every time I walk in the gym, I'm trying to do something new. I'm trying to produce a novel stimulus, whether that be getting an extra rep with the same weight, whether that be throwing an extra 10 pounds on and matching reps, whether that be, okay, last time I did this for 10 reps on a normal tempo, today I'm going to do it with 3-second negatives.
How about 100 reps? Would you do 100?
No, I wouldn't.
Rory Littlemar used to do that.
Wacky, weird stuff.
But it worked for Rory. I mean, it didn't get on a pro card, but those 100 reps would burn you out, man.
I think that's good if you're doing long distance running, but not for bodybuilding. But Hunter, I've seen some of your videos. You're tremendously strong. B, what I notice most is you're very controlled. There is none of that yelling kind of, like the old Ronnie, hey, buddy, and all that kind of.
Branch Warren.
Somebody slapping you in the head and all that, It's very much not like from what I've seen. Yeah. It's very controlled, but your reps are very, I don't want to say slow, I want to say controlled. They're not slow and they're not fast either, but it's a very even tempo, especially like I was watching you the other day just doing hack squats, I think it was.
Yeah. That's probably the best exercise to illustrate what you're talking about.
Ridiculous. Bob's good at watching people work out while he eats.
No, I love watching. I was eating some Cheez-Its.
Donuts.
And I was trying to duplicate how many plates you had on, how many Cheetos I could get in my mouth at the same time. But no, you had a shitload of weight on there.
Yeah.
But like I say, there wasn't like a lot of yelling. There wasn't like a lot of screaming. Nobody was in your face counting reps. Just methodically, again, good pace. A lot of reps, though. I mean, you didn't do it for like 6. I mean, you must have thrown up 12 or 15.
It was, legs is kind of funny. My legs have gotten so strong. It's to the point where I really don't feel comfortable pushing like 6s and 8s on them.
Yeah.
Because like the videos that you're talking about, I'd hack on nothing but a Cybex hack or an Arsenal hack. So, the Arsenal hack, I PR'd on the other day, 10 plates aside for like 13. Mm-hmm. And then the Cybex hacks, I think we had like 8 plates for 12 the other day.
I think that's smart, though, and, for a few reasons. I mean, we've seen people that are tremendously strong, but just because you're strong doesn't need to mean you use all that strength on it, because there comes a point where you're becoming a powerlifter. And powerlifters don't look like bodybuilders. There's a reason for that.
There's a huge difference between moving weight.
Injury.
Yeah.
Listen, there's a straw that broke the camel's back somewhere, like the old game, Sean, where, okay, maybe it wasn't the 900 you hit on it, maybe it's 1,000. Maybe it's 1,000 and extra 10 pounds.
Our world's strongest bodybuilder, Ronnie Coleman, tore up from the floor up. Yeah. Johnny Jackson wound up tearing a quad, strongest bodybuilder. Branch Warren, very strong. So those injuries are waiting for you if you're not smart enough to see them coming. I wanted to change gears and talk about the end game, because you're here, you're a sophomore season as an Olympian.
Like the Avengers?
Well, no, I'm saying, where's this go? Where are we going? How much time are we going to invest in this pursuit? Because, I put over a decade into it. Do you have an idea how long you want to chase this sound out? Because I'm predicting like in 3 to 5 years, it's not going to be a Rami. Dexter's already gone. He had his swan song. The next generation is yourself, Hakeem, even Ian, if you want to throw him in there. But is there a window that you're giving yourself? Is there a timeline? Most bodybuilders just wake up one day and decide, this is going to be my final year. I was 35 years old when I decided to walk away. I think your dad was right around the same age.
Yeah, it's kind of funny you said 35, but from the jump, even when I was like 20, 21 years old, I've always told myself that at 35, if I am not, defending Olympia titles or, seriously challenging, i.e., I placed second the year before, I'll be done. There's life after bodybuilding, and while it really is a young man's game, I know there's a lot of people that have kind of proven that wrong. But at the end of the day, look at my dad. That's how I want to end up. He's 61 years old, no major surgeries, all of his joints work properly, internal health is on point.
He's still in shape.
There's life after bodybuilding. Yeah,
I see your dad it looks like he can walk on stage at any time. He always eats clean, I'm assuming. Yeah, there's no way you look like that if you don't eat clean.
Well, he's a great example, but how many people, athletes, say, that's my dad's life. I don't want to be my dad. So how close are we to your dad? I know Sergio Oliva Jr., his dad was retired by the time he came up, and his dad wanted nothing to do with his bodybuilding career.
No.
Different type of a road to hoe, but he still wound up winning the USAs and becoming a pro bodybuilder. How much are you trying to follow those footsteps or make your own? And because you can butt heads. You have a totally different philosophy. In today's bodybuilding, what your dad knew or knows may not necessarily apply.
Mm-hmm. I don't think we necessarily butt heads about it, because at the end of the day, like I said, I understand this isn't a forever thing. Look at what's happened even the last couple of years with young guys in our sport. Mm-hmm. But it's one of those things that I want to do it as long as I can, healthfully. And I think that's kind of, where Lee was at too. He got to a point where it was, he was outgrowing the sport while the sport was simultaneously outgrowing him. He had been there, done that, and the physiques were getting so big, it was time to go a different direction.
Right.
I have no clue what direction bodybuilding is going to take. If it, takes another turn towards the mass monster, route, which, it's like, I'm a head out. I don't. That's not what I want to do to myself.
Let's do some math, because you mentioned a number. Now, you're how old now?
I'm 28.
28. So, 28, Sean, right?
Oh, that was a good time for me. I was doing what he was doing at 28, so I was living the life.
So, question to you, Sean. All right, he's 28 years old. He just took 8th in his very first Olympia.
Yes.
Obviously, a great physique. Look like you've dubbed him the future. Okay?
Yes.
When will Hunter Labrada? This is always fun to ask when the guy's sitting next to you.
Yeah.
When will Hunter Labrada be in contention for that title? Is it before 30?
Mm-hmm. Well, I could tell you. It's a different journey. He's bigger than me. He's bigger than his dad. The dynamics of the Olympia. Look, he's coming up behind Big Rami. I was coming up behind Lee Haney. Lee Haney was our modern day Big Rami in a different way, because Lee Haney was known for shape, balance, and symmetry. Big Rami's just big, right? And
big.
And kind of 3D, he's Godzilla. That's what he's up against. And that look, I don't know, is sustainable the way that Lee Haney's beautiful, balanced, symmetrical physique was for the 8 years he reigned supreme over the Olympia. Big Rami's not in that same conversation. So what he's got to do is on a whole nother level. He could burn out, or he may wind up just walking away because there's nothing else to do.
Well, let's look at some of that lineup that you competed against this year. Big Rami showed up in shape finally. You know, everybody's been wanting to kind of see that. But he basically outbigged everybody.
It was timing for him.
I don't know if even that's a word, but I just made it up, okay?
Yes, he outbigged everyone.
He really hit that sweet spot that we've been talking about for like the last 8 years.
Sometimes it's once in a lifetime.
And he's so big that you couldn't not give it, now.
Yeah.
Let's go from there. You got Brandon Curry, who, similar to your own physique, you guys are both very symmetrical, nice physiques, more traditional.
Almost 10 years older.
Physiques, but he's got a couple of years on you, right? You still got Bonac in there.
And the other guy's gone. Howdy Chupin said he retired.
Howdy Chupin, we don't really know where he is.
He said he did make it a post that he's retired. We don't believe it till the time comes, but there's one less guy.
Let's just say he was low carbon at that day, but he'll be back, right?
Okay.
So you got Chupin in it. Phil, we don't know where he is, but he's probably done.
Yeah, he hasn't made a statement.
I don't think he would come back again, but
nothing else.
let's just assume he's gone. You still got Ruli Winkler. Dexter's gone. He's retired, right? You got
and Rolly's a question mark.
You got Akeem Williams.
Missed.
So
Rolly will be back for sure, but it's curious to see what it looks like after the time.
But there's no guarantee that he's back.
Yeah.
Right? He was supposed to be here this year.
No, Hunter was 8th this year. Okay?
Yes.
With Phil and Dexter gone,
and potentially
that moves you up into your top 6 that you were looking for, right? Ruli wasn't there. Obviously, he'll be back.
He's the X Factor.
Right? He is the X Factor. And then you got a couple of the new guys. We got Ian and we got...
James will be really good. Hollingshed.
You got James Hollingshed coming in from the UK. And you got a guy named...
Flex Lewis.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a question mark, but he's in the conversation.
Well, but we all know what Flex brings, and he would instantly be up there in contention.
Yeah, if he decides to do it.
So where do you see Hunter in the next year or two?
I mean, I had Hunter in the top 6 this year. That was just my perspective. I look at things differently. And naturally, if I thought he was in top 6 this past year, I think he does the same thing. He'll be right back there again in that mix. Those aren't things that I say lightly because there's a lot of things I don't like about today's bodybuilding, right? I mean, listen, Big Rami nailed it on the day, and that's all we were waiting for. And sometimes you can only peak once. I mean, we all have those moments where we hit our peak. Even Ronnie Coleman with 8 Olympias, I believe 98 is when he was like at his best. Like that's when he nailed it.
That's what he considers at his best.
Yeah, he leapfrogged over everyone. After that, he just kind of won it on size, and we saw him progressively become a bigger, but not necessarily better. I don't think that's going to be the case with Big Rami. He's going to have a lot to do to try to defend that title. It's not a guarantee. No. Brandon Curry's beaten him. William Bonac's beaten him. Right. Even old man Dexter beat him in the same calendar year that he became Mr. Olympia. So this is a kid that's got youth on his side, and we know what can happen when you're under the age of 30 in terms of growth and experience.
All right, Hunter, time to play your Steve Weinberger.
Oof.
Okay? It's a game we like to play every once in a while on here. All right. You looked at the video. You looked at countless pictures, I'm sure. You know, people send you all these comparisons. And, yeah, you got screwed. You know, like everybody's got their fans, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What are you going to look at to improve this year to get yourself into that, top 3 to top 6 spot? So when you looked at the video and you looked at your pictures, what did you think of you?
Oh, man, I don't think it's any secret what anyone thought of me, and that's... I need a back, and I need to come in drier.
Okay.
Conditioning in the back, yeah.
I need a back.
The back's there, it just needs maturity.
When you say you need a back, what do you need?
I need to put on a significant amount of tissue to my lower
thickness.
lats.
Lower.
Yes, okay. I feel like my upper back's got some pretty good detail and some pretty good thickness to it from training it wrong all the years that I did.
Right.
But, I said this the other day in a post, so I really feel like I have finally, figured it out when it comes to back training. So I really feel like it's just a... matter of time under tension thing. So we're progressing in leaps and bounds right now with my back. So
less arms, more back.
Yeah, right. You can never have too much arm.
Every Olympia champion's had a great back.
Everybody with great arms always has a weak back.
Yeah.
I don't find it to be coincidental. I think guys with great arms tend to use them.
Oh yeah.
Probably why they're great, but they also takes away from the back. So it's almost a matter of finding a way to minimize the grip in the arms into the back. Because you can train, you know this by now, of course, because you figured it out. There's a difference between training back with just your back and using your arms to train your back.
Well, the most important thing is he identifies the weaknesses, and he has a blueprint to try to fix those, and that's huge in the world.
Now, you said come in drier also.
Yes.
Now, everybody could always be drier, but what steps will you make to do that? Now, you look pretty good. I mean, I know you're kind of hard on yourself, but taking 8th in your first Olympia is not a small feat.
He's also measuring himself against seasoned Olympians.
Exactly. I mean, this is your first time there, that whole deal. But In order to come in drier, do you know what weight you were at? We don't do an official weigh-in for the Open, but
Olympia for the prejudging before I walked over, I was like 249.
okay.
Yeah. So
Which is more than what Ronnie Coleman weighed when he won his first Olympia.
Oh yeah, way more. Is it a matter of coming in less weight, or is it a matter of just manipulation of water at the end?
I think it is a matter of getting that last little bit of body fat off of my glutes and my lower back, and then a better water balance than
and that's
the final
timing.
week.
A lot of that's timing. And listen, he doesn't have a big resume for being a pro.
And that's kind of what I was going to go back to saying. Most of the people that I was on stage with at the Olympia, they've done 20 or 30 shows. That was my 7th show ever.
Yeah, I mean,
and after every show that I've done, I've gotten so much better. And if it makes any sense, like baby fat stayed off.
Yeah.
Like every show that I've done, I've just stayed leaner, like normally.
You can't really discount it. 7 shows. Sean, we did 7 shows as teenagers.
Well, what I'm saying is he's going to be making his biggest mistakes on the biggest stage, which is what happens when you get there at a relatively young age. I mean, there's very few Olympians in their 20s these days. That's almost gone the way of the 8-track tape. So he's still got some time to make those mistakes and adjustments way before he's the age of 30, which still gives him a nice little window to really hone it in and
Still
potentially become the next Mr. Olympia. And that, you know what, he's in the conversation this year. I mean, anything's going to be an improvement, but that's going to be because he's identifying the problems and he's actually going to go out and try to fix them. A lot of bodybuilders don't recognize their weaknesses.
True. All right, Hunter. All your competitors are watching this program right now. Looking right into that camera. Give them your message as they're getting ready for the Olympia.
I'll see y'all in October.
A man of few words.
You took the words out of my mouth.
See y'all in October.
We'll see you soon. All right. Hunter Labrada, great catching up with you. Appreciate you coming down here into the studios. And that's going to wrap it up for another Monday Night Muscle. For Sugar Sean, I'm Bob Chick. We're out.